Welcome to this edition of the Boon of Wireless Podcast, coming to you as always high above the streets in northern New Jersey at ANJ Media. Yes, New Jersey, we're in 2020. New Jersey declared itself the unofficial pizza capital of the world. How about that? Andrew, you like pizza, don't you?
Yes, John.
You do. What's your favorite type?
Plain.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. Okay. Our guest today is the first Chief Revenue Officer for Paysafe, Rob Gatto. Paysafe is a leading payments platform with an extensive track record of serving merchants and consumers in the global entertainment sectors. Their core purpose is to enable businesses and consumers to connect and transact seamlessly through industry-leading capabilities in payment processing, digital wallet, and online cash. Paysafe was founded in 1998. They support more than 250 payment types in over 120 markets in over 40 currencies. With 4,000 employees, Paysafe transacted over $165 billion worth of volume last year. Rob joined Paysafe in July of 2020. In his role, Rob is charged with spearheading Paysafe's international sales functions across a range of high-growth sectors. Those include gaming, travel, entertainment, digital assets, including crypto and fintech. Rob brings 30-plus years of experience of delivering transformational growth and the go-to-market functions for both private and public businesses of all sizes. He has helped build multiple fast-growing businesses that have led to an IPA or sale to technology leaders that include IBM, Oracle, Neustar, and Adobe. His functional areas of expertise include sales, marketing, channel development, business development, client support, consulting, operations, and corporate development. So please join me in welcoming Rob to the broadcast. Rob Gatto, it is a pleasure to meet you finally, and welcome to the Boon of Wireless Podcast.
Well, thank you for having me. And I'm a Chicago boy, so I have my own particular pizza likes and dislikes. So definitely a difference between the East Coast and the Midwest on pizza.
There you go. I don't know if we are the official pizza capital of the world. I think someone just said, hey, let's say that we are. But anyway, I've spent a lot of time in Chicago in my career. Deep dish at the original Uno was my favorite.
Yes, Lou Malnati's and Pizzeria Uno are the two large. One is thin crust and one is stuffed or pan pizza.
There you go. Well, we're going to have to contact them for to be an advertiser. All right, so Rob, give us a little bit of background on Paysafe and tell us about you and your role.
As Chief Revenue Officer, basically all the go-to-market functions report to me. My job is to work through the customer base, grow that base, as well as bring on new customers. But in general, look, we're a payments company. You mentioned it up front. We connect consumers and businesses. What's really different about us is most folks either focus on the credit card, debit card, bank transfer part, or they focus on wallets. We really have both. And what that does is it really allows us to have sort of a two-sided network. We work with merchants like any of the cell phone companies, but we also bring our own consumers. So we're a little bit different in that sense. And there's a lot of really cool trends going on in the payment industry right now. One is white label wallets. So, we have a traditional wallet product, not unlike a PayPal, for example. We have Skrill, the Teller, Pago in Peru. But what's happening is merchants want to take the experience and personalize it. And so I'll give you a good example. Exala in the gaming industry accepts credit card payments, typically micro payments, because most of the people who pay in a video game are paying in sort of micro dollar amounts. And what Exala has done is created a wallet on our technology that's branded Exala that they can connect with their gamers and provide their gamers a way to easily pay via their wallet, and then potentially benefit downstream by giving them a prepaid card in the wallet that they can use outside of Exala. So it's a way for Exala to engage their brand with the consumer and create a longer and broader lasting experience, which is very different than, hey, I'm just taking a credit card payment.
Obviously, entering into the wireless business, Paysafe was established long before the smartphone revolution of the late 2000s. So what are your thoughts, and how does Paysafe approach the evolution of the mobile space and the rise of mobile payments?
So, gosh, I'm unfortunately old enough, John, to remember pagers. I remember the first large mobile Motorola phone, flip phones, even the James Bond Nokia phone. My kids were sort of in that age group of where you give them a phone or don't give them a phone question when the iPhone and the first Samsung Galaxy came out. So I've sort of lived through it. And, when I think about the change is, look, it's completely changed the way we interact with one another as human beings. It's changed the way we consume information. It's changed the way we pay for goods and services. A good example. My wife fought the mobile revolution from a mobile commerce perspective. She liked to go to the store. She wanted to try things on, and now she only shops on commerce. There's an Amazon package, maybe more than one, that shows up every day. I think it's changed the way retailers function with consumers. Brands now have their own stores. Malls are a thing of the past. I used to go every year with my daughter on Black Friday to shop for Christmas. Maybe it was a masochist. We wanted to fight the crowds, but it was something we did as a father-daughter. And, that's gone. We haven't shopped that way in a decade. So I think first, it's just changing the way we interact. And then I think if you sort of drive down into it, it's completely changing commerce. More than 50% of the people prefer shopping with their phone from our research. Less than a quarter use a laptop. I mean, I have a personal MacBook here on my desk. I can't remember the last time I actually opened it up. I'm either on my phone or I'm a big iPhone user. I consume and shop on the iPhone. Desktop. I remember when, if I had a good year and I got a bonus, the first thing I wanted to buy was the next big iMac. Now nobody has a desktop. Some other sort of stats around it, 330 million Americans own a phone, 85% are smartphones. And then we have a pretty diverse consumer and customer base across Latin America and Europe. So obviously those areas are behind, but you're seeing adoption. Think of Brazil and Pix. People store everything. They store, I think I saw just the other day, the new Google phone launch and the ability to store driver's licenses and digital IDs. You can open, I travel every week, you can open your hotel room now with a phone. So I could go on forever about the change, but to me, it boils down, it's basically changed the way we as consumers shop and pay for items. And it's driving the need for not only retailers, but also mobile companies to think about mobile first and how they take that experience. And we at Paysafe, we feel very well positioned that we've got a mobile first focus. We have our own digital wallets, and we have some cash digitization products that I'm going to talk about later in Paysafe Card and Paysafe Cash and Safety Pay.
It's interesting. About 3 months ago, I was in my local grocery store, chain store, and a sweet little old lady was writing a check. And I said, wow, I haven't seen that in such a long time. Because as you're right, it's swipe, it's tap. And I was a late adopter to that.
Well, when you were in college, I'm sure, my way of getting cash was I went to the local grocery store and I wrote a check and they charged me 25 cents. So I would write a check for $20.25 to get my $20.
There you go. But back to your comment about everything on the phone now, I did read a latest survey that said most people would rather lose their wallet than their phone. You know that sick feeling when you're going somewhere and you reach back and there's no wallet there? That's bygone as well. So as we say, the world is changing, and we have to adapt, or not be at the front of the pack. So Paysafe, as we talked earlier, is what you said was a mobile focused company. So let's turn to the wireless industry itself. I rave about the All Wireless and Prepaid show that was just completed last week. I saw a couple of your folks out there. We spent some time together. And it's an industry that has not going to slow down, the wireless industry. As you said, I think there's even more than 330 million phones out there. That's the population. And a lot of people have multiple lines. And of course, with IoT, 27 billion connections coming in the next couple of years. But from Paysafe's standpoint, what are your thoughts on the key trends in the wireless industry right now?
The first one is the technology trend of the rollout of 5G. I think that over 45% phones now have access to 5G. Look, I remember the dial-up days, right? So I remember what it was like when you couldn't get access to the internet on your phone, or you were using a numeric keypad to send texts. All consumers today expect that they can open their phone, they can get to a site, and they can navigate and transact on that site with speed. So to me, the rollout of 5G just continues to make it easier for all of us to use our phones for more things. I think the second trend we see, and we didn't talk about earlier, I spent a lot of time working with the wireless industry in my ad tech days, and so I'm very familiar with all of the data that these carriers have. But I think the diversity of the mobile carrier landscape, it's no longer just AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile. You have the entry of these MVNOs, and the way I think about it is, those MVNOs are basically specialized carriers that are going after specialized demos or geographies. And I think there's a growth potential where mobile becomes more personalized as an experience, whether it's underbanked in Latin America or it's older generation that interact with consumer cellular. You see just a lot of different specialized verticals. So I think that's the second trend, and I have some ideas on how that may play out. And then I think the third trend is this whole Lifeline item and the Affordable Connectivity Program changes. There's a ton of consumers connected into Lifeline where those companies are going to have to figure out a way to do something different. Otherwise, they're going to die. So I see those as sort of the trends, a little bit around technology and speed, a lot around of verticalization or specialization, and the last is sort of a government-driven item.
You talked about the ACP program, and obviously that wasn't funded on this go-around earlier this year. It ran out, and you talk about MVNOs, and as you said, specialization. I used the word differentiator. There were some very large MVNOs that banked on, no pun intended, that banked on their entire business model being the Affordable Care Program that was just ended. And I know of some MVNOs with 400,000 subscribers that now are scrambling to reinvent themselves or have closed their doors. In your opinion, do you have any thoughts on whether the ACP program will be reinvigorated either in its previous state or in a new type of look?
I typically think that those sort of things just end up being regenerated in a different format. So I believe that there will be some subsidization at some point. But I think more importantly, what it'll do is it'll force those MVNOs who were reliant on it to really broaden their business model. And I think what will happen is you'll see a shakeout, right? Some will adapt and some just won't make it. And I think the ones that adapt will end up stronger in the end. And there always will, in my mind, be a push for some subsidization in particular demographics from the government perspective. So to me, once those programs happen, I don't think they ever go away.
Right.
I think they just regenerate themselves.
Okay. Well, you've already seen one or two of the carriers and a few MVNOs create their own ACP program type things, giving discounts or whatever it is to try to keep their customer base happy. But yeah, that was if the rug was ever pulled out from anybody, that was it. And I, for one, never thought that the program would die. But like you said, we'll have to see what happens. There will be a new administration, one way or another, in a few months, and we'll have to see where that lands. MVNOs are very competitive right now, and as you said, the business is healthy, and the explosion of MVNOs now is unlike I've ever seen it before, because you've got an easy entry now. Still expensive, as I've said many times, still a commitment, but even T-Mobile has now their own MVNO in a box. A lot of companies are out there making it simple for you to be a light MVNO, a full MVNO, and we can spend hours talking about that. But you have to have that differentiator. So let me ask about Paysafe. There are a lot of payment processors out there. What is your differentiator? Why would I, as a merchant, choose to go with Paysafe versus the other half a dozen or dozen payment processors out there?
This is sort of a very interesting point. If you think of MVNOs as a merchant, right? They have a relationship with a consumer. So I think in that particular area, they're specialized, which you and I discussed, and often that may mean underbanked, it may mean older portion of the population, or it may mean younger portion, going after sort of hip and young, maybe Ryan Reynolds and Mint. And so what I think is that optionality to pay for your service month after month after month is important. And those demographics that are often specialized are not credit card or debit card people. So I think that the MVNOs have an opportunity to build out, in some cases, their own branded wallet and a hip wallet that maybe the younger generation will take and adopt, a chance to drive downstream, maybe hand that person their own prepaid bank card that is branded to the MVNO. And then I think in the older section and the underbanked, it's more about payment choice. And so I think cash, we've got a lot of stats that cash isn't going away and that people are concerned about not being able to use cash. And then I think there are just frankly demographics that only have cash. And so I think the ability to accept your monthly payment in both a white label wallet or a cash environment is going to be potential differentiation for certain types of MVNOs. And that's an area where Paysafe is highly differentiated. An MVNO who simply wants to take a credit card will have tons of choice, and Paysafe can be a great option for them. The differentiation comes in thinking about that payment method in a little bit different way, and it's tied often to the demographic or the specialized nature of the group that you're targeting.
Nothing drives me more insane than going to get a cup of coffee and they say, we don't take cash. And now I got to put, $2.69 on my credit card or debit card. It drives me nuts. But, there's something about being old school and, completing a cash transaction and giving them a tip. I have a problem when I go to my local delicatessen or something and get a sandwich and something else, and they put it on the credit card. I like to give them $1 or $2,
Right.
but nobody takes cash anymore, so it's crazy.
You're beginning to see some tipping apps in that area where you can quickly tip. But let me give you the use case for digitization of cash.
Okay.
So if you sign up for anything that's a monthly fee, right? Typically, you have to have a credit card or you got to pass some level of credit because nobody wants to hand you something monthly that you're not going to be able to pay for. And so that eliminates, especially in that underbanked area, a whole group of people that should be a target. And so what we actually do is we allow that group to take their cash, to go to any of 1,000 outlets. They put the cash up and we actually put it on a prepaid card in a little wallet that they can then use. Now that wallet also has a credit card look and feel to it. So at a MVNO, they can put that card up in the numbers. Now they're in a monthly service fee, but they're not actually using a bank account or using a credit card. But I totally agree with you. I still use cash, but I do think the tipping area is an area that you're going to continue to see evolution too, because nobody wants it on their credit card for sure. And then if you think about, we're a little off track, but if you think about the merchant, especially in the restaurant industry, where they may want to pay their servers out in cash at the end of the night, wallets offer a great opportunity for that sort of exchange to happen.
All right, so I'm going to ask you to answer the age-old question that I can't figure out. If you order takeout and you go in and you pick up your food, do you tip? When I asked the person giving me the food, they go, "Of course," but
yeah. So I do. The reason, so I pretty much order sushi 3 nights a week, and I do on a pickup. And the dilemma I have is most of the apps take about 30% away from the local. So as I get to know the owners, I actually do one of two things. I either phone my order in,
and add the tip,
right, in order to save them the 35%, or if I'm running around and I'm in the app and I do it, I actually tip. And I view the tip more as an opportunity to make up for the app. But it's a great question.
You never know. Anyway, I could do a whole series on tipping. I mean, everywhere they're asking for tips, and you go to you buy a dozen ear of corns, and it says tip amount 20%,
Yeah, I mean, to
25%.
stay in this sort of environment,
Yeah.
John, I travel to Europe. I spent half a month in Europe because half of my business is in Europe.
Yeah.
And what I'm always flabbergasted by is the difference between the US and Europe and how payments work. You know, in the US, everybody's in a credit card and they're just beginning to get to a wallet, but almost all of your restaurants, you're still using your credit card. In Europe, you made the joke about your wallet, lose your wallet. In Europe, I never carry my wallet because my phone ends up being my wallet because everywhere accepts touch to pay. Whereas in the US, I think we're still behind in that environment. It's really interesting.
We were at Mobile World Congress in February, March of this year in Barcelona, and my wife and I had breakfast, and I put a $5 tip down, a €5 tip, and the woman says, "What's that?" "That's for you." She said, "No." I said, "Take it." You know, they just don't tip over there. All right, we're digressing. You mentioned Europe. Most of Paysafe's business, correct me if I'm wrong, most of your business is in the international markets right now versus the U.S.?
I would say at the enterprise level, sort of large accounts, the bulk of that is overseas. In the US, we're a little bit more weighted towards small businesses like nail salons and restaurants and that sort of thing.
So big entry now into the mobile space, as we're talking about the wireless space. And when did that initiative start? I know I met a couple of your guys, and we've been talking on and off for the last couple of months. When did the decision to get into the mobile industry in the United States, how did that germinate?
We sort of stumbled into it, to be honest, John. You know, Paysafe grew up in the higher risk environment in video gaming, gambling, a little bit of travel, and that was our roots started there. And then as the company acquired numerous companies throughout its life cycle, when you're around for 20 plus years, usually that happens. We gravitated into new things like cash, and so as we started to think about cash cash digitization as an option, it started to drag us into places that had what I would call subscription services. So think of Netflix as an example. And that slowly moved us into the wireless because what we found was wireless is a monthly fee, and specialized wireless, especially in the MVNO, they were interested in demographics that still enjoyed cash. So that's how we got started. And now we're beginning to see, custom wallets or white label wallets be an option as well. But what really dragged us in was searching for other applications of cash digitization. Really is how we got going. And Guthrie, he led the charge on what we do overseas with cash and moving it into the digital world. He wanted to be the one who moved it here in the U.S. That's
Right.
how.
Well, I actually introduced them to some of my longtime friends, former clients in the business at the show in Las Vegas last week, and they were, the secret sauce. They were blown away. I mean, I was having trouble keeping up with the technology of what they were talking about, but I think you've got a good opportunity to penetrate the MVNO market here and other, maybe the carriers even as well. With your process. So yeah, kudos to you guys. And Guthrie, yeah, he's I'm sure he's going to see this. Guthrie, you're a go getter. And I think I was the one who recommended to Guthrie and Todd that they come out to the wireless show in Vegas. And I think they had a good time. And I think they made some really good contacts.
Well, we certainly appreciate your help. And Guthrie's one of my favorite Paysafe people. He dives in when not all of the items are in a row, and he's pretty good at it.
Good. Another New Yorker, right? So
for sure.
Where do you think payments in wireless are going to be in the future?
So I think the role of the smartphone will only continue to increase in people's lives. Like every year, it gets further and further. A good example. When I purchase now online, I'm usually on the road, on my way. If I get to a site and it doesn't have Apple Pay, I bolt.
Okay.
I mean, it's a very interesting dynamic. And so I think mobile and choice becomes more and more important. Cash, we don't want to lose. I think underbanked and older folks will continue. I do think that mobile will continue to morph into more specialized demographics. I think your experience with the phone is very generic today. And I think what will happen is my experience with the phone, as opposed to my three children's experience with the phone, will change. I think that's maybe the biggest change I see over the next decade, is that it won't just look the same for all of us. And then I think the last thing I'll leave you with, people often think of payments as an afterthought. And I see this across the entire merchant landscape, John. And this is sort of my Apple Pay example. I think that the carriers that integrate and think about payments as a way to drive loyalty and engage with their consumer are really going to be the ones who win.
Okay.
Payments is a very personalized experience to me. I want security around it. I
Right.
want it to be frictionless, and I want it to work. And when it doesn't, I get really aggravated, and I typically move away from whomever that I've worked with in that environment, or whomever the merchant is. So from my perspective, that's how I see it. It's going to evolve.
That's great insight. Now, do you think that there'll become a time where the merchant can actually monetize the payment process and actually use it as a revenue source?
Oh, for sure. Today, there's a vertical called independent software vendors. So this goes back to the concept of a white label wallet. So I mentioned Exala earlier, right? So Exala is using my wallet to embed payments into their entire ecosystem, and then they get a share of it. So sure, I think that's the future. And I think again, this is what gets you away from credit card and debit card payments. To me, are a thing of the past. I think that wallets are the future. They integrate those payment methods in, but I think that opportunity to embed some sort of wallet technology as a merchant and get a piece of the action is totally the way of the future.
Very good. Well, Rob, that's great insight on a major part of any industry that we really don't talk about. You process your credit card, you go home, 30 days later you pay your bill, but this is the future, I guess. And adapt or lose, I guess. It's the
I totally agree. Not unlike the ACP, you either adapt or you lose, for sure.
That's it. Well, Rob, if somebody wanted to contact Paysafe and talk about some of your programs and platforms, how would they do that?
They can contact me direct. I'm pretty open. It's robert.gatto@paysafe.com. Pretty easy. And I think if I can't help, I'll send them to the right place.
Okay. Do you have a website that we could?
Sure. It's just paysafe.com. And you
We're
can get
seeing
any
it
of our
right now.
solutions from
There
there.
it is. There it is, right there on the screen. Look at that. Okay. Thank you, Rob Gatto, Chief Revenue Officer of Paysafe. And I look forward to continue to interact with you and your team to see how we can take this whole new way of digitalized payments, wallet payments, everything that Rob was so open to share with us of where his company is going. So thank you, Rob, and really appreciate you coming on today.
Well, thank you, John. Appreciate the offer. And hopefully we'll get to do this in person over a nice dinner at some point.
I would love to. All right. So that's going to wrap it up for another episode of the Boon of Wireless. We'll see you next time.